Spring is in the air at Global Voice Broadcasting. Fresh new shows are hitting the airwaves every day. Shows about all the things that matter to you in your life. Music, fashion, celebs, and more. It's all here, and it's getting better every day. Only at Global Voice Broadcasting.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's going on, guys?
Hello. This is Into. It's our live interactive talk show about gay issues. I'm Matt Dempsey. I'm a psychotherapist.
And I'm Jimmy Fowley. I'm a comedian, and my teeth have frequently been referred to as stalagmites. And today, we are streaming live every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard
That's
Time.
right.
So check us out at our website, which is into.show.
Mm-hmm.
And you can follow us on social media, which is at intotalkshow.com. I mean, at intotalkshow. Oh, there's so many
that
things.
was so
That was
close.
almost
That was so close.
We were practicing.
And this is also a very interactive talk show, so we really want you guys to call in. We want to talk with you, not at you. So the phone number should be up on the screen. But just to share it with you again, it's 323-522-5482. Again, 323-522-5482. It will be on the screen, I suppose, in a moment. But definitely call in because we really do want to talk to you. And so, look, here's the deal. When you call in, it's sometimes we can there's a little bit of a delay between what you're seeing and what's actually happening. So it's going to be best for you to turn down the volume on what you're seeing on your computer and listen into the phone. And when you call in, it might just take us a minute to get to you. But if you hear us on the other end, that means that you're through. And we will get to you as soon as we can, but we totally want to hear your questions, so please call in.
It'll be fun. And let's just get into it. Sorry, guys, I had to do it. Today's topic, which is dating.
Dating. This is a good one.
I
excited
looked
about
right into the camera. I don't know. I've never done that before.
Hopefully it was like right on you. I'm really excited about it. I was looking forward to talking about this one tonight.
I was excited. I feel like in some way or another, every conversation that we've had kind of connects to this.
You mean personally, just on our own?
Yeah. Well, we're always talking about like, hey, I'm going on a date with so-and-so, like in our personal life. Matt's probably like, don't you say too much. But we do, like when we hang out, it's like, oh, like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's what a lot of us talk about. I mean, obviously, there's so much that we can all talk about, but how much it goes back to dating, it's pretty common.
You know, I'm kind of curious. Like, I think there's so many things that I don't think that there's any like rule book. You're kind of playing it by how you feel comfortable. But one thing I was thinking about today is like, when do you know that it's come to a good place to end it? Because like, obviously you go on one date and it's an awkward interview, you know what I mean? And sometimes you really feel that connection, but I feel like for the most part, even with people I've had long-term relationships with, that first date is weird. So what do you say? Like, what's your rule when you're dating? Are you like, I'm going to give it 3 dates, I'm going to give it 2 dates? Or do you feel like, you know, some people talk about like, you know, in that first, minute?
Okay, look, I'll just say a couple of things quickly. I think for me, I generally have a little bit of a, kind of a rule for myself that I'll usually go on maybe like 2 dates and just see, and just give it some opportunity, because sometimes you don't know exactly how you're feeling or if they're a little awkward or if they're uncomfortable, and you want to give a chance where you're actually getting to know somebody. Yeah. And to see if there really can be a connection there. So the other thing that I would say also is I'm actually kind of a firm believer in, for the majority of the time, like you're able to pick up on something, You don't
have to force it.
You don't have to force it. I don't think that that's 100% of the time, but I do believe that the majority of the time we're able to pick up on something, and that really just kind of goes back into kind of general psychology of attraction about why we find ourselves drawn to the people that we are, because there's going to be something. I'm like totally like, get your notepads out, geeks, because like, here we go. But like,
no, I like it.
Because there are so many things about somebody when you first meet them. It's not just kind of like this mysterious like je ne sais quoi of like, oh, it's magic. This is like true romance. I met my soulmate. Like, get out of here with that. The reality is that we are picking up so many things about somebody. So, you know what I mean? It's like gestures and mannerisms and breathing patterns and, you know, their voice tone and like all of those things.
And if they have those like collect that saliva in the corners of their mouth. This is like a personal experience I had where I was dating this guy and he was very cute and very nice, but like he had these like, it was his lips were like collecting spit in the corner, and like it was making me like sick to my stomach. And like, what do you say? You know what I mean? Like, cause do you say like, hey, like you wipe your mouth, or like, I don't know, is that a medical condition? I don't want to offend any if our listeners have that. This is a topic for a whole other show. But
like saliva collection?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. But it's also your response to it. You know what I mean? Like maybe if there was somebody who was incredibly loving and supportive of you in your life at a very kind of early important stage of your life that had a little bit of a spit collection in their mouth, that might actually be something really endearing to you. You might find yourself attracted to them.
Instead, I'm like projecting like my angry dad, so I'm like, be mean to me.
Well, I think that's actually a really great point, though, is that there's so much projection that comes up, and that's really where so much of our attraction does come from. And it's such nuanced, subtle, implicit, like all of these things that happen, you know, kind of outside of our consciousness that go on all at once and tells us, oh my God, I'm so into this person. So there are so many things that just inform that. So I think that there's something that's really important about that, because it gives us opportunities to feel very comfortable and safe with people that have those traits that, you know, tell us that things are good. But then also there can be other stuff within that too that can feel like there's real opportunities for growth within that, because that person's probably going to maybe hurt us or wound us or trigger us in some way that we've been triggered in the past, and that becomes a very active opportunity for us to work through that in some new way that can actually be helpful and healing if we view it in that way.
So question, do you believe in soulmates?
No.
Okay. You're like kind of a science, obviously a psychological person, where you're like, we're all just kind of getting triggered by people who connect us to...
I have my own spiritual beliefs about things, and I do think that people find their way into our lives for particular psychological reasons, but not just kind of magically, or it's not like some lost soulmate that we're reconnecting with. I don't believe in that. But again, I do believe that these are opportunities that present themselves, that actually it's us helping present that without us being aware of it. It's a subconscious thing that goes on where we're welcoming certain people into our lives, and those become the opportunities for us to date and to kind of work through some of our shit.
Yeah.
That's the point of it. But otherwise, if we're not checking in with ourselves about like, okay, what is our shit and what is getting stirred up, then it's like we're dating people and be like, why aren't you making me feel better? How come you're not loving me enough? How come you're not more present for me in the way that I need? And then we start putting the blame on the other person, and we're not going to do that. Because that's not how we're going to have the more fulfilling relationships that we want. That's not how we're going to have just better experiences overall.
Tony Robinson, or is that his name? Tony Robinson.
Tony Robinson?
He was talking about like the minute that you're thinking about what the person like owes you, then it's done. Like it unless it's always what you can bring to it. Not that I'm like a huge Tony Robinson freak. Is it Robbins or Robinson?
I don't. Who is that?
You have never heard of him? He's like a huge. You've heard of him, right, Ryan? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's what I thought it was. Robin.
Oh, got it.
He
you're
like
talking
talks
about the inspirational,
like this, and he like shouts.
Yeah. Got it. Yep.
There you go, guys.
Well,
I'm bringing all sorts of really valuable information tonight.
Yeah, but you know what? They're actually. So I do want to kind of throw it to a question that was thrown our way earlier today on social media. So at Steven.olives shot us a message and says, can you provide any tips for getting more comfortable / confident with approaching other gay men? I know one obvious choice is to just go to places where there are more likely to be gay men, but I often find myself very intimidated in those atmospheres. So how can one overcome that?
So I'm confused by this question because we were talking about it before. It makes it sound like he's talking about talking to gay men outside of like...
No. So what he's asking is, how do I get more comfortable talking to other gay men just in general?
Oh, okay.
And like I can put myself in situations where there are other gay men, but it's hard because it can be intimidating and it can be a lot. So Jimmy, what do you do? Or do you ever feel like that yourself?
I haven't had that problem in a while. Like sometimes some gay people are like intimidating to me. Like I feel like for example, my experience in West Hollywood, I feel like there's obviously all types of people. So there's all types of gay people. And the certain type of gay person I'm intimidated by is like these like models who are like very cliquey and like or like people who like gays who are really smart, who have like very good jobs, you know, who make a lot of money, and like I like dress like a homeless person and drive a Saturn that like can barely drive, you know. So it's like,
okay, but what do you do then in those situations if you're at a party and you're noticing that maybe there are some of those kind of like cliquey model types, or there are like really smart guys who dress well and have nice jobs? What do you do?
Well, I can only think of like at like the gym, for example, like if I'm like, oh, I think if I've seen them before and I've met them, like to be like, oh, I think we know so and so, you know, like if there's a mutual, you know, connection, and just by being nice and like kind of smiling, because sometimes I feel like, oh, this person doesn't like me, and anyone who's like kind and like, you know, if you put yourself out there, like you most of the time you find that people really respond to that regardless, because I think being kind of, you know, closed off is just a defense mechanism. It's not like they don't want to connect with you. So I've had to remind myself that. And if anyone is like that, like super rude or closed off, like it's kind of nice that you're not wasting your time connecting with them.
I really like what you had to say about it, because the fact that you can recognize that you feel like you want to be closed off because you're feeling intimidated and you're feeling, you know, a bit scared that they're not going to care about you, that you can call that out and kind of nudge your way to be different than that.
Yeah.
And do what it feels like instinctively you want to do the opposite, like you do want to shut down. The fact that you put yourself out there and you're nice and you're kind and you're engaging, that can still be a scary thing anyway, because you're making yourself vulnerable. You're like opening yourself up. But the benefit of doing that, aside from possibly, you know, the other person responding well to that, because they might not, they might actually turn and walk the other way or something, be like a total dick. But the main benefit of that is that you're affirming to yourself that you're okay and you'll be okay. Because we become defensive when we feel like, oh my God, they're not going to care about me. There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not engaging enough. I'm not going to be smart or funny enough. And then that's when we want to shut down. So when we force ourselves in those moments to say, you know what, I'm at least just going to say hello and be kind and give people the benefit of the doubt, then we're affirming to ourselves one more time that I'm okay. I'm enough. And that's how we can start changing the way that we think about ourselves more positively. Totally. And that's how we flex that emotional muscle for ourselves and get stronger and become that much more able to be in these social situations. Because I know when I go to certain social events, and it really could be like any gay guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I first step into it, it's like, I don't know who I'm going to see. I don't know what to expect. I feel uncomfortable. I feel nervous. So it's not
Matt, have you ever been kind of like, you know what I feel like is common? Sorry, Ryan, am I close enough to the microphone? Sorry, we've had some conversations about this. Have you ever found that you've actually been a little bit closed off or almost mean to someone, like, or do you find that you don't fall into that, like when you're feeling uncomfortable?
Most of the time I don't.
Yeah.
Most of the time I don't do that, because if there's ever any opportunity where I'm meeting somebody or there's, you know, somebody there to say hello to or whatever, I really make that effort to just be open and be kind, because it always gives me so many more opportunities than I ever thought of just like meeting new people and you know what I mean, and having fun and like things that I wouldn't have ever thought of. And it just makes me feel better again because of the psychological part of that, which is if I'm open and I'm friendly and I'm kind, then I'm really securing the idea and belief for myself that I'm okay. So I feel better too. I start to feel less afraid. So I do that. So the one caveat though is that like I'm a human being, and there are some times when I'm just like done. Or I'm just like so out of it, or I'm just so tired, or maybe I am just like kind of like scared and nervous, and I'm like, I don't want to be brave today. Yeah. So I'm probably going to be a little bit more closed off and quiet, and I'm sorry to everybody around me. So there's always going to be flexibility that I give myself, but most of the time I really challenge myself to open up.
Yeah. And when you're dating, like for example, like, do you feel, one of the questions I have for like dating in general, like how many people should you be dating? Because we're in this age where you could be like on Tinder, you could be talking to like 20 guys, you could be in different phases of we've gone on a few dates, or we just like, we've just started texting, or
Yeah.
this is someone I know from dodgeball who blows me every now and then. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all have like such a myriad of.
Is that what happens in dodgeball, by the way? Have I been missing out on this?
I mean, dodgeball is a great way to meet cool people because it's such a.
Ryan shaking his head yes.
He says, yeah, it is a good place to meet people. Yeah, he agrees. Ryan, our producer, plays dodgeball, so he gets it. But I love that community. I think like anytime you're playing like recreational sports in general, because it's so, as opposed to like meeting someone at a bar, you're like in this,
Totally.
You're connecting. And
so it's obviously going to be great to have as many opportunities that you can to meet other people, put yourself out there as much as you can. The question that you have specifically, though,
like
regardless of how,
like, for example, Matt, how many guys are you like, that's too much for you personally?
Well, let me say this. Instead of giving you a specific number, nice try, Jimmy. Instead of giving you a specific number about what my rule is, I will say this, that regardless of how you're meeting other people or any of that, if you just start paying attention to what the vibe is, and if you find yourself starting to collect dates and collect guys in your life, and the intention of that starts to really feel like, oh, I feel safe because I've got all of this, then you're hoarding dates.
Totally.
And whenever we're hoarding anything in our lives, like attention or opportunities for love and dating and all of that, if we start hoarding that and it becomes a little bit excessive, then that's coming from a place within us that believes that we're not enough. We don't have enough of love within ourselves, and it's coming from a very fear-driven
like
thing.
desperate.
And so it's like, be ambitious, but don't be thirsty.
Yeah.
Like, put yourself out there and have opportunities where you can meet other people, date a few people, figure out whatever number feels comfortable for you, but also just be really mindful of your intention. And if it's to hoard dates, then maybe reconsider it and, scale it back a little bit. I think we might have a phone call.
What?
So
that's awesome.
Do we have a phone call? Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Matt. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing? What's your name?
I'm Sam. I'm calling from Manhattan Beach.
Yeah, Manhattan Beach, West Coast.
Hey, Sam, what's up? What's your question?
So going on kind of off what Jimmy was saying about, like, I guess, like, the whole, like, gay dating thing, like, multiple guys, or, like, Jimmy, you got that. Anyways,
it's that.
yeah, so with, like, I've noticed, like, a lot of dates that I've been going on, so like, ultimately lead up to sex, which I'm not complaining, sex is amazing, but I kind of want that, just, like, I want that relationship.
Yeah, so your question is, Sam? Are you still there? Oh, so your question is, how do you get a relationship and not just have sex, correct?
I mean, it seems obvious. Yeah, don't go to their house, but.
No, I mean, I get it. It's kind of a tricky thing to figure out, like, when's a good time to transition from maybe dating to sex and have that be a part of it. How is it generally within the first date, or how many dates until you get to a point where you're having sex?
It is more the first date. I mean, granted, I am dating older men, like in their 30s and like above.
Oh, really?
'Cause I'm only 20.
Okay.
And so yeah.
Got it. What do you think it would be like to just not have sex on the first date? I don't mean to be like stating the obvious question about that, but I'm legitimately curious. What do you think it would feel like to just go into a first date, just experimenting and say, okay, this time I'm just not gonna go home with somebody?
I think to me, like for the older man, I think, oh, like this kid's not interested then, or not kid. I guess this person isn't.
You have a condition that therapists refer to as Jimmy Fowley syndrome.
We do, actually. That's a legitimate psychological term.
I totally get that.
What do you get about it, Jimmy?
Because it's this feeling that because what you're basically saying, Sam, is that you're not feeling super comfortable having sex with these guys on the first date is essentially what you're saying. And how can you not do that? And you're prioritizing their comfort, like, oh, well, they won't be comfortable if I don't. So I do that too, where I put other people's needs first. And it's like a kind of like a weird people pleasing thing. Like, I struggle with this. This is like my main thing, is to really say, like, what would I want to do? There was this, like, I stopped drinking about 8 years ago, and I would frequently hook up with people that I had no interest in, because I was feeling like really low about myself and really empty. And I remember like I met this one guy at Hamburger Mary's, and he was like wanted to hang out, and I wasn't really feeling it. And then just like you had this conversation with Matt, I talked to my therapist, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to see him, but we have this plans to hang out on Thursday. And she was like, well, what if you told him that you didn't, you weren't interested? And I was like, what?
That's an option?
Like, I didn't even feel like it was an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah.
So, I would just encourage you to not worry about what other people think. Like, worst case scenario, someone's like, you're not interested in me, you're not gonna have sex with me, you're done, then great, then you don't need them. But I mean, Matt,
Well, I mean, but Sam, I get it though, especially being 20 years old and you're going out there and you're dating, and you're dating some guys that are a little bit older. The idea or the expectation can seem like, oh well, they're gonna want to have sex, right? And it's kind of like, and if I'm going out there dating, like, I want to connect, I want to actually have something that can happen, and also feel like that they are interested too, and feel like that they care. And so it can just feel like that's what needs to happen then in order for this to all go down positively. But when we're putting so much power to the other person that we are defining success of a date based on if the other person likes us, that can be really problematic, because that's not going to be the way that we can find true compatibility with somebody. We have to really check in with ourselves first and know what our needs are first. And if that's to maybe not have sex on the first date because we actually want to get to know somebody and see if there can be a little bit more of a real romance there, then that's what it is, and that's your need, and you really want to honor that. And that can be scary to do, but the more that you're able to do it, the more that you're kind of strengthening your ability to do that.
And then I also had another question. Like, I've been trying to date younger men, but I can't seem to find myself to date younger men.
Are you just more interested in older men? Like, why do you feel the need to date younger men?
Well, I don't know. I think more like homogeneity, just like similar, just to go through similar things that older people have already gone through, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, if I date an older person, they can maybe help me through that.
Totally. This is also, I don't want you to ever feel alone in this, because this is really common. This is really normal. And I think especially in the gay community, it's really typical for a lot of us to want to date older, because we don't have the same experience that a lot of straight people do, where we have parents who are straight and can help guide us and show us what it means to be straight, and how you date and how you connect and what romance is and all of that. So we didn't have that kind of guidance growing up, so that can really translate itself into the kind of romance that we find ourselves interested in and desiring when we're in the gay community, and so we kind of look for almost like a little bit of like a mentor. I think that's fine, Sam. I don't think that you need to beat yourself up or try to say, oh, I should be dating somebody my own age because that's the quote-unquote right thing to do. If you're finding yourself attracted to somebody who's maybe 10 or 15 or even more years older than you, and that's your thing, and you both are two consenting adults and you're into it, why not? Go for it. There's obviously something there. If we find ourselves attracted to something, that generally means that there's some psychological and emotional opportunity for us to grow in some way, for us to learn something new about ourselves. So I say go for it. And perhaps maybe the opportunity that you can learn is how you can be with somebody who's older than you and still speak up about what your needs are, and let that be the thing that strengthens you.
Yeah, that's great advice, Matt. It was like just what I was telling you when we were when I was talking about that relationship where I dated this guy, and he was the nicest guy, but he was like 7 years older than me. I dated him when I was like 22, 23, and he was like my dad. Like, I would come home from work exhausted and just like pass out at his place, and he would like cook dinner, and it was like, first of all, I was bringing like nothing to the relationship.
Not true, but continue.
I mean, I'm pretty confident that it was like I had the better end of the stick. But it was, I totally get that. Just you feel like a little bit more taken care of,
Yeah. Well, and in a way too, that there is that power, where there is that kind of power difference, where how could I possibly say what I want? Like, what am I bringing to the table? Like, I really need to just concede to whatever it seems like they want, and maybe if they just want a piece of this ass, then I should give it to them.
That was totally.
Yeah.
Well, and my friends give me shit about it just because that older person may not be able to hang out with them or with us.
Well, your friends kind of sound like bitches.
No,
Just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Matt's literally like he's like in high alert mode. He's like, this is not what I want.
No,
totally.
Nobody's bitches. We are all in this fight together.
There we go,
Sam,
I like that.
Sam, did you have any
Right.
other questions, or did we answer your question for you?
you answered all of them. I don't want to pick up all the time, so I'll let other people call.
Awesome.
Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in. That was a really awesome question. Thanks for it.
Nice meeting you. What?
Nice meeting you.
We did.
We did.
We met
our voices. We had a voice meeting.
Yeah.
That is kind of a tricky one, and it is also really, really common where people like guys date other older guys.
Yeah,
that comes up all the time, and I don't think that there's anything wrong.
What's
with
the biggest age gap you've ever had when you dated someone?
That I've ever dated? The biggest age gap was I dated somebody who was 8 years younger than me, and in the other direction it was 5 years older.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Matt Dempsey getting a little bit of personal information out, one show at a time. I got it.
I'll be fully revealed. Okay, well, we had some other questions too online, so why don't we do that? All right. How about this one? We got a question from @the Jeffrey D, I think it is, and the question is, when is the quote unquote right time to talk about exclusivity?
That's a hard one.
Jimmy?
I was so hoping you weren't going to come to me first.
Duh.
I don't know, like, I've really struggled with the past couple times. Like, I was dating this guy who... Okay, first I was dating a guy who I really liked who was in an open relationship.
Okay.
So automatically, off the bat, it's not happening. You know, because he's... And that was confusing. It was the guy who I told you he, like... had a boyfriend, but he also, like, lived at his dad's house. So he'd be like, come over and watch TV. And I'd be like, do you want to go to, like, your boyfriend's house or your dad's house? Yeah, and, like, so there was that situation. And then I liked this guy who I, like, brought up exclusivity. And he was like, yeah, like, no. And
how long were you guys dating?
we were, like, hanging out for, like, a month.
Okay. And, like, how many dates did you actually go on, would you say?
Well, you know how LA is. Like, you go on, like, 3 dates, but then you also, like, chill at each other's places. And, like, I don't know, like...
So it was, like, some dates, I'm just kind of, like, hanging out, and that was over a month. And so at what point, what made you think this is the right time to have this conversation?
I don't know.
Like, how did you know?
I just really liked him a lot. And then... So, like... And then he was like, no. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it's, like, weird because you're, like, you basically just, like, really put yourself out there.
Yeah. Were you, like, wrestling back and forth? Are we talking about somebody that...
No, I'm just smiling because I'm so fucking uncomfortable. I'm, like, so mad at myself that I'm, like...
I was like, wait a minute, who are we talking about?
Did you think I was talking about someone that you knew?
Well, I wasn't sure, but okay, it doesn't matter. So, but how did you...
By the way, every show is kind of interesting because then, like, a lot of me and Matt, like, we'll talk about other stuff. Oh, I know who you think I'm talking about. No.
Okay,
no.
Anyway, but so, all right, but how did you, like, at what point, what was the gauge for you? Like, was it just like, okay, a month is up, that's enough time? Or were you just kind of like, now I'm feeling it, so now I'll say it? What was the barometer you used?
Like, it had been like a month, so to me that was like, okay, you know. And I just thought about him all the time, and I was like, I could see myself in a relationship, you know. Like, I was like, oh, when I'm with him, I think he's like the coolest person ever.
Got it.
So I don't really think about other guys. Got
it. Yep.
Like, because I feel like for me, if I don't really care about the other people I'm kind of dating, like, all that fades away.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, this is someone that you really care about.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I like that because you're using, like, two separate tools. One is just checking in on timeline and giving yourself a little bit of, you know, kind of space, like a month. Like, that sounds kind of good. That's not like, you know, nothing's being rushed here in a month.
Yeah. But
then the other part of it is you're just checking in on your heart and where you're at and what you're feeling. And you were like, I like this guy. Like, I'm into it, and I could totally be down for it. So, okay, those two things paired, then yes. Now let's have this conversation. And then he shut you down.
So weird.
Yeah, but that's awesome that you did it anyway. That's awesome that you put yourself out there because, like I've said in here before, it's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to open yourself up and open your heart to dating at all, and also to having some of those more challenging conversations as you are dating, checking in with the person, where you at, how you feeling, like, are you, like, is this something that we might want to, you know, kind of close up and just do this for ourselves for a little bit, you know? Those are hard conversations to have.
Yeah.
And the more that any of us, even right now, it's difficult for you to talk about it, the more that we're able to have these challenging conversations the more that we affirm that we're enough, that we're okay. It's supposed to feel uncomfortable. That's why we call it growing pains.
Yeah,
we're
totally.
growing, you guys. We're growing and we're learning.
What do you think in terms of like your last relationship? Like at one point were you like, okay, this is a relationship and not just like...
I'm actually kind of notorious for jumping the gun and being a little bit too quick. I'm going to keep it real. Like, I just am. And, I mean, it was really after a couple dates. I, like, had the conversation.
Was the guy like, whoa?
A little bit, actually, yeah. He was kind of like, oh, yeah, I feel like we're kind of on the same page, but why don't we just kind of, like, you know, kind of keep it cool and, like, we'll see. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I was okay with that, too. I didn't force anything, you know?
But that's good that you communicated. You're like, this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, looking back, I probably could have waited a little bit longer than a few dates. You know what I mean? Like, I could have given a little bit more breathing room. But it is what it is, and that's just kind of how I roll sometimes. So I did that. But the important part of it was, that wasn't dependent on what his response was going to be. I wasn't sharing because I was certain he was going to say yes in return. I didn't know, and we never know. And if we base any of those vulnerable conversations, those difficult talks, on what we think we're going to get, then we're screwed. We're not going to be able to just be ourselves and talk about where we're at and what we're feeling and what we need. And it's really important for us to be able to do that.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like in relationships there is that person who likes the other person a little bit more. Sometimes, you know, like sometimes it's that perfect, you know, but I've also found that I'm like, I can generally sense like, oh, I feel like I'm a little bit more attentive.
Feeling it.
Or
the
the other way, or like you can feel like they're a little bit more attentive, you know.
Well, and that's normal, and nothing's ever going to be perfectly split. But also the thing to keep in mind is that if you do get into a relationship with somebody and that really does take off, when you think about the longer term opportunities for that relationship, if you are together longer, there's going to be ebbs and flows in that, where somebody seemingly has more power than the other, which is really just saying somebody is kind of a little bit more secure in themselves than the other person. There's always going to be that happens, because that's just life. We move through life and we sometimes feel a little bit more solid and at other times feel a little less solid, and that's the real gift of a relationship, is that you have that support that can be there for you when that's happening. One thing that I really want to say, and I feel really compelled to say this too, especially because we talk specifically about gay issues, so I need to make that note, is that it's really, and we talk a lot about vulnerability and stuff, it's particularly hard to be vulnerable and open up for anything vulnerably, even just dating. It's hard to put ourselves out there, because when we're growing up and we have this belief that there's something wrong about who we are because of our sexuality and because of who we're attracted to and what we like and who we like, it really gets in a very deep-rooted way ingrained in us that there is something wrong with us. And so it makes it that much more challenging for us to open up to other gay men. It makes it that much more challenging for us to open our hearts up, because we feel like by opening... and we want to shut down, because it feels like if I'm opening up my heart, I'm really opening myself up and revealing what a mess I am, and like what's wrong with me, and like how terrible I am.
How I'm feeling right now on this podcast, just being like saying everything that's up. It's like so vulnerable, but that's good. That's how you like grow, and that's how you heal.
What is it specifically that you're feeling really uncomfortable about right now talking about?
I think just going through like a laundry list of like past relationships, and it's like I always love to make fun of myself and like tell stories, embarrassing stories. Like I think it's the best. I love listening to other comedians talk about it. But I'm also like, I'm going through something personal with my mom, and I think that is really in the back of my mind. So I think I'm feeling a little bit more like open,
just like emotionally tender.
Yeah,
totally. I get that.
Because like, and I already told Matt and Ryan, but like my birth mom is really sick, and they think she's gonna pass in the next couple of days, and it's a weird situation because I'm adopted, so I didn't really know her super well, and so So I guess I'm talking about that on the show.
Well, but I even appreciate you being vulnerable about that. Like, I mean, that's really personal, and that's really intimate. And the fact that you can even do that here, on a platform like this too, where other people get to hear that too. That's not easy to do. Like, I mean, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah.
And you're allowing other people to bear witness to that. So that's not easy, but the fact that you're doing it, it is something that's strengthening more of your own emotional sense of yourself.
Yeah.
That you're okay. And I actually think that it's kind of appropriate too, because a lot of what we find ourselves attracted to is so deeply entrenched into our childhoods. You know, the people that we're drawn to in some way really is, it sounds so cliche, but really can be such a reflection of the first caregivers that we had, or even the story, like for you, it's your birth mom that you didn't know, but even still, like that being a part of the landscape of your history, you know, and so that's going to be informing all of that too. So a lot of the vulnerability that you're doing now here, and a lot of the stuff that's coming up for you, is so intimately tied into your specific experience dating. So it makes sense that that's happening for you now, even as we're talking about all this, that all of that's coming up.
Totally.
And again, just being vulnerable and open about it is really powerful and can be healing too. Thanks,
I think
Jimmy.
It's good. Yeah.
We love Jimmy, everybody. Support for Jimmy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So Matt, one of the things I wanted to, first of all, thank you for like letting me share that.
Of course.
One of the things I am curious about is like, so let's say you're dating someone and you're not really feeling it.
Yes.
Do you think you go and you just say like, hey, like, it's been fun, like, but I think this is not really a connection, or do you just kind of let them fade away? Like, what do you think is appropriate to do, what is kind to do, and what do you think is just what you've experienced dating?
Those are really, really good questions, and I don't think any of it is black and white. My personal approach to it is, if I'm dating somebody and say I go on like a date or 2 dates, and I don't feel like that particular romantic connection is there, I just kind of like let it happen as it will, and I'll just kind of trail off a little bit. And if they reach out to me, they want to get together again, if they're making the effort, then I will have a conversation about it. I won't just brush them off or ghost altogether, but I will have a conversation at that point.
Side note, have you ever been ghosted?
Ghosted.
Where you're hanging out with someone and then they're gone?
I'm trying to think of specific moment. None that immediately come to mind about like just being ghosted. I've definitely had conversations. There's definitely been people that have not been interested at all from the get-go, or even after a date or two. But generally the conversations happen.
Yeah, they don't just stop responding. Yeah.
But I'm also maybe like kind of like persistent. Like I'll be like, hey, what's up? You want to get together?
Yeah.
No, okay, next week. Hey, what's up? Like I usually give it the 2 rule. Like I'll ask twice, and if on the second time it's like it's still not flying, then I back off and
I feel like
a
true ghost, like even they don't even say no to it. Like you're like, hey, want to get together? Nothing. Like, hey, like is everything cool? Like, you know, nothing. So yeah.
Have you been ghosted?
Yes, I have.
Has that been
once
challenging?
Yeah, it was really challenging.
Yeah. How did you deal with it?
I was really upset. Like, first of all, it was in a situation where it like became like a work related thing. So we were supposed to work on a project, and then that person just like didn't respond. Like to this day, I have not even responded.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and like I actually thought maybe he was in a car accident because like that something happened.
and then you did one of those things where you're just like, hey, I'm actually just really concerned for your well-being. Like, no, you're not. Get out of here.
I mean, it was so. It was this guy. I hate you.
Wait, did you do that?
Yes, because I seriously thought he was like maybe something.
Get out of here, Jimmy. You are not that concerned about his well-being.
I really was, Matt. It was for a fucking shoot, and he didn't show up, and I was like, oh my god, like maybe he's dead.
Okay, fair.
This is the worst.
Oh my god, no, that's
so
good,
he ghosted, and it was like actually really, it was insane.
Yeah,
it was really intense.
Yeah,
and I was like, so if you're listening.
He's
a porn star.
Okay.
But I won't say his name because that would be messed up.
Yeah, that's probably a wise idea. Why don't we get one more question in before we have to move on? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one more
question. Are there
question.
any other callers? People, please call.
Hey, but we had one great caller from Sam.
No, that was great. I loved Sam. He could have stayed on and asked more questions.
Forever. Why did you leave us, Sam? Just kidding. Okay. Okay.
You ghosted on us.
I know. Sam, how could you do this? Okay, we've got one more question, and it's coming from @PTimRoca4T. And And that person wants to know, how can someone be a romantic when everyone else isn't?
Ooh.
You want me to go?
Yes, I do.
Okay, my thought on this is actually that it can really seem, and I think especially, not that I keep trying to highlight this, but I think especially in the gay male community, everybody's so good about having their masks on. Everybody's so good about pretending like, oh, so cool, like I'm not fazed by anybody, or I'm not really kind of interested, or I'm not really like open in a lot of ways. So I think that there are so many more romantics out there than it seems. And also, just at the core, all of us as human beings, we all really have the same basic needs, which is I want to know that I am connected to other people and that I, can feel the exchange of love. Like we all want that, regardless of what shows up on the surface. At the core, we all have the same need to connect meaningfully. So I do think that to some extent we're all kind of romantic. So I think if you go into it assuming that everybody really does, regardless of what the facade is on the front, that behind that everybody's kind of like jelly mush inside, then you're starting off from a more accurate perspective and belief. And then it feels a lot less intimidating too when you're up against other people.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying, like, because it's also a culture of like hookups or like people like messaging you, how big's your dick? Like if you're on Grindr, I'm not on Grindr anymore because I can't handle it. But like people being like asking like such personal like sexual questions, and even if like there's someone that like I was like hanging out with this one guy and went over to his house and he's like, we're gonna hook up, and he's like, hold on, I just want to see the end of this episode of American Idol. First of all, who still watches American Idol?
Well, nobody. It's off the air now.
Yeah, no, but it's still on the air. Or was it The Voice? It was something that was like, who cares?
Got it, yeah.
But
it's like so disconnected because it's either like watching a show or they just wanting to fuck,
like,
but not actually like something.
So
a little bit more. But that's also, there's such a hypersexuality within the gay male community. And
why do you think that is?
Well, I think that is because it's normal for us to just be sexual anyway. I'm very sex positive, so I'm in no way speaking against sex. However, when it's amplified in the way that it is in our community, so much of it is really shame driven because we all, like I said before, we all have a natural need to connect with other people. And when we have a lot of shame in our lives because we're growing up as a gay person, it makes it that much more challenging to open our hearts up and to connect more meaningfully and more vulnerably in other emotional capacities. So then we rely on so much more of the surface, which means I'm going to hook up and I'm going to talk about your dick and I'm going to talk about your hole and I'm going to just want to and I just want to get in there and have that be the way that at least it's helping create some illusion of connection. There's a physical connection. It's more of an illusion of vulnerability, right? Because you're like literally stripped down, so it feels like, oh, well, I'm really vulnerable with a lot of guys. But not in the more emotionally tender ways, which is how we can connect that much more authentically.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, and I like how you said it's seemingly vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, that's the illusion of it.
Yeah, the illusion of it, because it's harder to be like open up and say like be like almost emotionally vulnerable.
Totally, it's much easier for the helium heels to go up than open up in other ways, right? So, like dead, like
am I giving you nothing?
You're giving me dead
I'm
eyes.
sorry.
Jimmy.
I have.
That's
so
how I
much
know
joy.
when my joke is not good. Is when Jimmy just stares at me.
I think I'm in an emotional overload. Like I think I'm just like there's so much.
Well, Jimmy, you've given us a lot tonight, but so why don't we wrap up this portion
with something very special and very healing. A little man I like to call Tristan. By the way, Ryan, our producer, has said that we need to figure out a way to end Tristan like in a way that's like quicker because it can go on and be awful.
Tristan's got a lot to say.
Got this little bell for Matt. So the game really is when Matt feels very uncomfortable and he wants to end, he will give us a little sign with this. And then it'll be done. So he won't be held hostage until I stop.
By the way, I love that it's freshly purchased and still on its little hanging tab. All right, here we go.
Okay. Hey, Matt.
Hey, hi Tristan. How are you?
I'm kind of annoyed.
Oh, what's going on this week?
I've been single, but I've been trying to meet a guy.
How's that been going?
Oh, it sucks. I keep logging on to Grindr. I'm trying to meet a guy who's 12 inches.
Okay, so it sounds like you're looking for a real connection there.
Yeah, I mean 12 inches tall because I like short guys and I'm 3 feet. Oh, Matt, get your head out of the gutter. Are you sick? What, do you think I just want to get fucked? So I wanted some random stranger to hit my spot?
Tristan, are you looking for a guy specifically that you can just have sex with, or were you looking for something
I
different?
want a guy who I can hook up with, but I can also take to tender greens.
Okay. Well, you know, I wonder if there might be some other opportunities for you to meet guys, because going on Grindr and looking for dates, though it happens, is a little bit like shopping at the hardware store for milk. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, let's just say I'm very thirsty and I need a lot of milk. Where should I go?
Okay. Tristan is thirsty, by the way. Real thirsty.
I need to update his Instagram account. He has like 50 followers.
You know, Tristan's really making a mark.
Yeah,
you can't deny that. But it seems as though that we are all out of time for our show. But you guys definitely check back in next week because we are going to be here again Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific.
And Matt, thank you so much for just like probing me on different stuff to like not probing. I'm not trying to be like make it after doing Tristan, I'm doing all these sex like innuendos, but like helping like facilitate the conversation because it's like you're really good about just like if something feels like it's happening, you know, just I mean, I guess that's your training, but it just made me feel like way more comfortable. So
that's
thank
awesome
you for that.
Well, thanks for saying that, and I appreciate you being open enough that we can do that. And have these
it's
conversations.
hideous.
No,
it's
hideous. No, and that's the point. It feels hideous, but you still did it anyway because it's the reality is that it's human, and it's one of the things that I love the most about you is that you can go to those places, and you're helping other people get to see what that looks like. So thank you.
You're welcome. And Ryan, thank you for being here and helping me flesh out some of that Tristan ideas.
Jimmy, we got to wrap up.
Okay, yeah.
Did you want to remind? I already said that part. So.
Oh my God, Matt. I'm such an asshole. Okay.
All right, you guys.
Yeah, so thank you guys. Make sure you follow us at Into Talk Show on our social media.
Yes, definitely. And you guys remember, today is a chance to uplift someone else so we can all rise together.
Because otherwise, you're absolute trash.
Bye, everybody.